Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back. Today we're going to do Ken Shoulders number 44. And it's kind of a special one because we're going to go back and look at some of the topics and discuss some of the things that we did before, but I want to tie it all in together. And today we're going to talk about the compact fusion reactor that was basically released by the Navy and in 2019. So thanks, Brandon. And we have Chip here today who's going to do some reading for us after. So yeah, let's dive in here. That's at the bottom. There we go. All right. So the reason why I brought this slide up is because I was asked on the Jeff Rentz radio show by Frank Chili, and he's the executive producer of the Jeff Rentz radio show. He actually brought William Tompkins on the show over 20 times. And I was asked on the show because I'm an expert on the Salvador Pius patents that the Navy released in 2019. So this show was on January 13th of 2023. And if you go to my Technology Envoy YouTube channel, there's actually a link there where you can listen to the show. So yeah, let's go to the next one, Brandon. And this is just something that Frank Chili sent me after the show. Basically, the part that I wanted to see, just keep scrolling, Brandon. That's the part I wanted to show you guys. There's Salvador Pius, and Salvador Pius is an aerospace engineer and an inventor at the Naval Air Station of the UFO, which is partially true. So I just wanted to show you the connection between me and Sal. We can keep going, Brendan. So September 26th of 2019, the Navy publishes patent for free energy device. And this free energy device is the compact fusion reactor. There's been a lot of talk about it lately. There's a lot of talk on X about it, on fusion reactors and in fusion on X recently. So I thought it'd be a good time to bring this up again. So the next slide here, I think should show, yeah, so this is from the Naval Air Warfare Center. And this basically is the compact fusion reactor. And what I really want to bring up and show you guys is number 75 is in the center. And that is basically the focal point where you have a charge cluster mechanism that is there to tap the 0 point, essentially, as Chris Beskar has said. So what's really important here is these are rotating, but they're counter-rotating. And the other part that's very important here is that you see that the thing that rotates in figure 3, it's actually on a taper itself. So this taper creates a gradient, and that's kind of important. That's some of the stuff that we've been talking about. So let's go on to the next one. So this and that slide and this slide were provided to me by David Wilcock, who's the director of advanced technology at Stavati and a friend of Chris Beskar's. They talked about this stuff. It was more than 4 years ago when I got all this information. So this is basically showing that you can do it with 4, as in the previous picture, but you can also do it like in figure 2 with 2 of them that are counter-rotating and causing this focal point where the charge clusters are happening, and this is where the magic is, essentially. Again, always about counter-rotation. So let's go on to the next one, Brandon. Okay, so when it was first described to me, they talked about this thing being the size of a soccer ball, this compact fusion reactor. And it's basically like a vacuum tube. You do have to power it up and get it working. So that's where it says the 1,000 watts of input power. It takes about 1,000 watts of power to get this thing going, but because it's an over unity device, it can generate a terawatt. And a terawatt is 1,000 gigawatts of power, which is an awful lot of power out of something the size of a basketball. I've heard
I
Chris
think a,
Beskar's,
million watts. Terawatt is a million watts, I think. Million times.
yeah, yeah. And I've heard Chris Beskar at least twice in the past say in the future we're going to have more energy than we know what to do with, and this is why what he's talking about, partially anyways. So it's a very important thing that the Navy released back in 2019. So let's go on to the next one here. So this is Palo Verde, and to put it all in perspective, like Brendan said, that's an awful lot of power. 1,000 gigawatts is what this thing produces now. This is Palo Verde. It's the largest nuclear plant in North America. And in total power, it only produces 4 gigawatts, where the compact fusion reactor, the size of a basketball, produces 1,000. So to put in perspective, that's huge, right? And that's why Chris has said what he said in the past. So let's, yeah, go on to the next one. Now, this is from Ken Schroeder's work, and these are EVs or EVOs, exotic vacuum objects, also known as charge clusters. These are actual pictures of the mechanism that is basically being, this is the stuff that's being focused at the middle of the compact fusion reactor, which was that number 75 essentially. So these are charge clusters. And again, check out Brandon's channel that this is going to be on. There's lots and lots of shows that we've done on Ken Schroeder's work, because Chris Beskar gave us all of Ken Schroeder's research, and that's what we've been going in through for the last year and a half, basically. So what's on the next one? Okay, now we have something from Walter Russell, and this is basically the mechanism of how the charge clusters work. And if you notice in the drawing there, everything is focused to a focal point at the very center. And that is the same center as number 75 in the compact fusion reactor. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have Chip read this to us and understand that this all happened back in 1961. And here we are all this time later, where we could have had this technology. So this is something that Chris Beskar talked about in interview number 6 that we did, and the fact that we've waited an awful long time. So I'll let Chip do some reading here.
You're muted, Chip.
Walter Russell's counterwound overlapping conical coil designs. It's the title of the paper. September 10, 1961, Walter and Leo Russell reported to their contacts at NORAD that the coils had worked and that the President of the United States could announce to the world that a greater, safer power than atomic energy could be provided for industry and transportation. The Russells were convinced that they had found and demonstrated a new source of energy and a conversion process for what is now known as zero-point energy. There's several diagrams demonstrating the vortex, helicity, spiral design of these coils and their counter-rotating nature. All right, figure 2, I will read the caption for the figure. Concept behind Russell's coils is the title. The inner coils are wound from the ends toward the center in opposite directions. Sounds like a bifilar coil. The outer coils are wound from the center towards the ends in opposite directions. Okay, inner and outer.
Whoopsie. Do you want to read this bit as well, Eddie?
Yeah, you can read it all for
Yeah,
sure.
a couple of years later, after we both spoke at a conference in Denver, and on a plane back to Dallas, I told Peter Kelly, that's interesting, about an interesting experiment done by Walter Russell and recounted his excellent book, Atomic Suicide. 2 coils were round on cones. The the apices of these conical coils were pointed towards each other, pine cones kissing, and power was applied so that the bucking fields were created by the collision of opposite magnetic fields.
Yeah.
Very, very fine iron filings were dropped into the gap between the coils, and a levitating sphere was produced.
Wow, interesting.
Yes. When the coils were slowly pulled apart, an oval formed by a sphere surrounded by a disk appeared. An oval followed by a sphere surrounded by a disk appeared. When Peter arrived home, he tried this experiment and reported that when the power was turned on, nearly everyone in the building complained of feeling nauseous or queasy. He explained an experiment was going on, and everyone would understand what was happening.
Mhm.
After about an hour, the very clear and cloudless sky began to suddenly boil up, and a major thunderstorm ensued. Power was removed from the coils, and the storm dissipated as fast as it had arisen. Triple question mark. Weird stuff, no doubt, and subject to duplication by others if we all share our information.
Wow, right? So yeah, so cool. So again, it's we have these things that are pointed towards the center, and there's a focal point, which is something that we're gonna go and listen to Chris Beskar and David Wilcock talk about this basic configuration. And Brandon is going to play something.
What I'll do is I'll do it on my laptop because that's got volume.
Yep, sounds great.
So let's just stop the share, and I'll put that in the chat. Those two in the chat. So I'll put the two links in the chat. So I can pick them up on my these. It's just so
Okay,
it's
cool.
stop the share. Okay, so now I'm showing with this. So share. Let me just get the sound. Let's try with that. I have to come out to get the things.
Yep.
Just get the.
So this is a little short that's done. It's on my Technology Envoy channel, and this is some information that came to me over 4 years ago from David Wilcock and Chris Beskar at Stevati Aerospace. And we're just going to play this for you because it totally relates to everything that we're looking at here.
That was also filed by the same guy, Salvatore Pais. Isn't this strange? Just go back to the slide. September 26, 2019, the Navy publishes Salvatore Pais' patent for a free energy device. And here, right from the top page of the drive, look at this, folks. What we're seeing in figures 1 and 2 is the core of this free energy system. And you got these needles that are coming to points, and they're probably creating what, Chris?
Well, exactly. It's similar to a charge cluster, and it'll generate, tremendous levels of energy, maybe 0-point energy. It's a 0-point energy tapping mechanism.
So they've given us something that would completely free the world from the need to pay for energy, I guess, right?
Yes.
Once you've built these.
Once again, there's a patent that's available to build a device that will solve all the world's energy problems. Yes.
It's incredible. And what they actually say here is that you can get up to a terawatt out of these devices. The drive says this, for as little as 1,000 watts of input power. And just to give you a comparison of what a terawatt is, it's 1,000 gigawatts, right? So the Palo Verde nuclear plant only generates 4 gigawatts. So the Palo Verde nuclear plant, we'll bring up some images of this for B-roll that I don't have in the slides, but it was also filed by the same guy, Salvatore Pais. Isn't this?
That's repeating it, right? Okay.
Yeah. So let's go back to that drawing of the Walter Russell coils one more time.
Yes.
Okay, so
You notice the B fields were orthogonal, and the alphen fields, the alphen, A-L-F-E-N, the potential vector fields were also labeled on that. And that's what I'm assuming the A plus and A minus, that's not an E field. The B fields are there, the mag fields are there, but I think the potential fields are labeled A plus and A minus.
Yeah. And yeah, the plus and the minus gives indication to the counter-rotating direction of everything. So we can see that there's a focal point here, again, the same focal point that's on the compact fusion reactor at the center, which is number 75 of the patent, essentially. So essentially what you've got going on is this technology is being applied in a by having stuff counter-rotate that is tapered, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Very, very, very important part of it.
It's the torsion engine. We're looking right down the middle of it.
Yeah. So now there's one more thing that I wanted to show you guys. It was something that I found on X, and it really sort of connects back to the Turing wave. And it's a really great visual that I wanted you guys to watch, and we'll record. And yeah, and then we can talk a little bit about what we saw. So,
Let's see what I'm doing here. Okay.
like I said there, this reminds me of etherons that form the reaction diffusion of the Turing wave from subquantum kinetics and the hills and valleys that cause the gradients. So look at these little things, which are those little balls would be considered the etherons. And if you can just conceptually think of them forming this Turing wave, although it's not the proper shape. So there's the reaction and then the diffusion. And the other thing that you see here is you see, because of the slope of everything, you see all these gradients, because subquantum kinetics is basically a science of the hills and the valleys of things, essentially. So I thought this was a really great way to sort of show things. What do you guys think?
Well, it's very analogous to graphene. If you tear it apart, what you're looking at are the Dirac dimples that are naturally present in thin carbon films, graphene. And hence why graphene's it's got everybody's attention on with its dielectric nature, et cetera, and its channeling capabilities for Casimir devices and everything else. It would seem to provide a very identical topology to what we're looking at here.
Yeah, and you see how if you consider all those little balls as etherons, how that they come and they form, it's not the Turing wave shape because it should be a dodecahedron, but they form this shape in a reaction, and then the diffusion, they disappear again. And that's exactly what happens when they go from space-time back into time-space, and then they come back again. And I really liked, again, all the angles and everything, because it really shows the gradients of all that is very important in subquantum kinetics. So yeah, I thought this was kind of cool.
I have to tell you one little anecdote. I was sitting in a dry wash with Steve Greer in a CE5 trip one time.
Yeah.
And saw this identical topology manifest in the sand in the dry wash. These tiny little Lego logs, if you will, these tiny little chunks that were completely sequential, not random.
Yeah.
Very, very, very strong structure to them, but sequential in time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. So there was like a reaction diffusion going on then again, if they were coming and then.
Yeah. It was my first trip. I hadn't even been meditating for 5 minutes. The dry wash turns into this. I'm going, oh shit, this is going to be a good trip.
How many other people were with you when you were doing that?
25 or so, maybe 30.
And you guys were all like sitting in a group kind of, or what was the?
Yes. We were out at the Anza Borrego State Park east of San Diego at the time.
Yeah.
And which is a really good place to go because you can get away from people.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. You've told me quite a few really neat stories about being out with him and some of the things that happened. So very cool. So yeah, I just wanted to show this as the one last thing because it really kind of relates to subquantum kinetics, sort of. It's a really great visual. And if we could take something like this and make those little etherons form the dodecahedron and then have it sort of invert on itself, that's how we'd actually show a good simulation of the Turing wave. And that's something that we're going to work on in the future, essentially. So does anyone have any other comments before we end the recording or anything like that?
So those little units, consciousness agents, are just precisely that. Yeah,
Etherons, yep.
Yeah, the primordial elements of consciousness. And so you can see they're like a flock of birds. They're introspective, they're self-aware, they're moving in a coordinated fashion. It's a definition of consciousness, for Christ's sake. And at the subquantum level.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's one of the coolest videos I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I know when I saw it, so I commented it on, put it on my channel so I could find it again, of course. And I thought you guys needed to see it. Yeah, it's so excellent. So very cool. Well, okay. Well, thanks everyone for coming again. We'll end the recording now, and then we'll get into a good group discussion.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care. Cheers.